Hello, Khidnaf here. Proto-Indo-European, or PIE, is an ancient language that is very important in the field of linguistics because, in the same way that Latin is the ancestor language of Spanish, French, and Italian, so too PIE is the ancestor of the native language of 2/3 of the world's population. If you live in any of these areas, you probably speak a language that is descended from PIE, or if you speak any of these languages, you definitely do. The Proto-Indo-European language over the course of about 6,000 years evolved into the languages of the Celts, the Romans, the Slavs, the Germanic peoples, the Greeks, the Persians, and most of the people of the Indian subcontinent. Unfortunately, we have no written records of PIE, and there are no native speakers left in the world, but by examining its early descendants, particularly Latin, Sanskrit, and ancient Greek, linguists have pieced together a pretty good guess as to what it might have been like. It is a language long dead and nearly forgotten, but the features of this language, originally spoken by just a small group of ancient people in the steppe of Eastern Europe, reverberate in the dialects and cultures of 1 billion people throughout the world without them even knowing it. So to know some of this language, and to speak the long-dormant mother tongue of such a vast group of diverse people, can be a thrilling experience. And that's what I've made this video for, to share that experience with you. Now, I am going to teach you to recite a short story in PIE called The King and the God, or Rex Deusque, which I made a video of myself reciting a couple months ago so people could hear what it might have sounded like. But before we get to that, there are a few quick things to note. Firstly, linguists differ as to some specific features of the language, but what I'm about to teach you is close to the general consensus and based primarily off an admittedly slightly out-of-date book. Also, I've actually learned how to pronounce a couple things better since I made that video, so if anything I say in this video contradicts that one, go with this one. And one last thing, when I demonstrate how to say a consonant, I'm usually going to say it with an ah sound after it, just because it's hard to pronounce many of these consonants without a vowel after them, so just note that the ah isn't actually part of the sound I'm demonstrating. Okay, now to get to the actual tutorial. Now, the first thing to do is to learn how to say the sounds in PIE. Some of them are easy and pronounced just like in English. In this video, I'll use these symbols to represent the sa, la, ma, na, ya, and wa sounds. The only difference is that in PIE, some of these sounds can actually be treated like a kind of vowel and make up the body of a syllable. With the ol sound, for instance, it's kind of like in the end of the word battle in American English. The vowels are also relatively easy. We have no idea what the exact PIE vowels and accents would have been like, but we know there's an open vowel, a mid-frontal one, a close frontal one, a mid-rounded back one, and a close rounded back one. In other words, pretty similar to the English sounds ah, e, o, and u. Also, there are long and short versions of each one, and they only differ in how long you say them. Ah versus ah, oo versus oo, etc. The rest of them are going to take a little work. The Proto-Indo-Europeans had an R sound that I'll be representing with a normal letter R in my video, and it's pronounced as a trill, like in the Spanish rolled R, like this, ra. It's rather difficult for people who don't have it in their native language, so any R-like sound will do if you can't pronounce it. The letter X will be representing the cha sound, just like in my YouTube pseudonym, Khidnaf. It should be relatively easy for English speakers to pronounce. We already put our tongue in approximately the same place when we pronounce the ka and ga sounds. Next is what we call a glottal stop. It's pronounced by closing off the glottis. The thing is, we do this all the time in English subconsciously at the beginning of words that start with a vowel, like in the word apple. That's right, this is just an ah sound, and honestly, because we do it all the time at the beginning of words that start with a vowel, it's a lot harder to start words that start with a vowel without the glottal stop, which you're also going to have to learn how to do, than it is to pronounce the sound when we want to. If you still haven't figured out how to control your glottis from what I've described, just try coughing. You'll feel pressure build up in your lungs before releasing the pressure by opening part of your throat. The part of your throat is your glottis. Another way to get in touch with the muscles that control your glottis is to just open your mouth and make your lungs try to pull air in, but try closing something in your throat so that you can't. You've probably closed off your glottis. There'll be a little more on how to pronounce this in context later. And finally, we have the plosives. Oh my god, we have the plosives. Okay, so first off, if you put your hand up to your throat and go, ah, you'll feel something in your throat vibrate. Those are your vocal cords vibrating. In some consonants, like in sa, you don't vibrate your vocal cords or vocalize when you pronounce them, but in others, like za, you do. Now, when you pronounce a plosive, or a sound that you make by building up pressure behind something in your mouth, like your tongue or your lips, and then releasing it, you might vocalize or not at different points during this stage. In vocalized plosives, like in the English ba, da, and ga sounds, we vocalize while we're still building up pressure. In unvocalized plosives, like pa, ta, and ka, we start vocalizing later. But unvocalized plosives are subdivided into unaspirated ones where you start vocalizing again immediately after releasing the pressure, and aspirated ones, where you breathe out a little bit before starting to vocalize again. Now, the two can be difficult to tell the difference between for us English speakers because in English the two are allophones, or sounds that are different, but we go back and forth between without even knowing it depending on the circumstances. The P sound in pen, for example, is aspirated, while the P sound in spin is not. A great test to see whether you're aspirating it or not is to hold your hand up to your mouth and pronounce it. If you feel a little puff of air hit your hand, you're aspirating it, and if you don't, you're not. Now, I thought this was all to it, but apparently PIE doesn't have unvocalized aspirated consonants. It has vocalized aspirated consonants. Yeah, I didn't know this was possible until recently, when I realized that there's this weird fourth way to say these sounds where basically you start vocalizing while you're building up pressure, then you release it and breathe out quickly a little bit without vocalizing, and then you start vocalizing again when the vowel starts. Here's the best I can do for PIE's three consonants that do this. Ba, da, ga. Yeah, I'm not very good at it, but in a remarkable stroke of luck, I happen to know a native speaker of Nepalese named Assis, and in Nepalese, they have a vocalized aspirated velar plosive. Assis?
Ga, ga.
So that's how a native speaker does it. In PIE, they also have unaspirated, unvocalized plosives, which are pronounced as follows. Ba, da, ga. Yeah, I'm bringing Assis back in for this one, and luckily in Nepalese, they have two of these sounds instead of just one.
Ga, ga, ba, ba.
These three are relatively easy. They're pronounced just like the English ba, da, and ga sounds. Also, they have labialized versions of some of these, and labialized basically just means with a wa sound right after it. So they would be pronounced roughly like gwa, gwa, gwa. Okay, that's enough for pronunciation, now it's time to actually recite the story. The first line is Dorek se est, which means there once was a king. The tricky part here is the word est. You're going to have to pronounce the beginning of this word without closing your glottis, and then pronounce the middle of it by closing and releasing your glottis. Also, remember to pronounce the e in rex twice as long as normal. Not rex, but rex. Son putlos se est. He was childless. Again, we have that tricky est word, but we also have the letter n being treated as a vowel in putlos. So rex sunamewelt. He wanted a child. Remember to pronounce the hewelt without a glottal stop at the beginning. So deoso geheuterm perkisket suchnus moigniotam. He asked his priest, may a son be born to me. There are a couple tricky things about this line. We have the first aspirated vocalized plosive, and we also have the r sound being treated as a vowel in perkisket. The rest should be pretty straightforward if you've gotten everything so far. Just remember to pronounce the symbols I show you like I explained earlier in the video. Also, try to spot cognates with English or other Indo-European languages. The rest of it goes like this. So do so geheuter tom regum everquet, gesvo de wom veruno. So rex de wom verunom, ruposesore nu de wom ich geto, clud hi moi pter verune. Devos verunos cumte divos eguet, quid velsi, velmi suchnum. Dod estu velquet locos devos verunos, regos potni sunum gegon e. Well, that's all for today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section, and if you want to learn more Proto-Indo-European, there's this great website you should check out called Dnguhu? Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce this name, but, you know, I'm certainly one to talk about weird, ambiguously pronounced names. Maybe it's an acronym? Anyway, they have a lot of information on Proto-Indo-European, and they're a lot more up-to-date than I am about accurate reconstruction. Until next time, goodbye.